Bore da, croeso i'r webinar. I'll be speaking in English today, but happy for you to ask questions in English or Welsh. Croeso hefyd I Christine Edwards and Jason Jones, who will also be presenting today. Alice Teague is here from Welsh Government. She'll be able to give an overview and answer any questions you've got. And Ellen Howell, who you've just heard from, is also going to be answering questions in the chat. So today we're going to be talking about Nature Networks, a programme that is being distributed by the Heritage Fund, but money is coming from Welsh Government. Our aim today is to give you an overview of that programme, what it can fund and how to apply, and also answer any questions that you've got. So we have a total of £9.8 million to distribute through this programme. Grants will be between £50,000 to £500,000 and projects must complete by the end of March 2023. The programme is primarily focused on protected sites. They can be on land, marine, freshwater, woodlands, etc. But the programme is about enhancing those sites and restoring connectivity between the networks. So as I say, the money is for protected sites only. They can be special areas of conservation, special protection areas and sites of special scientific interest. Other designations will enhance your application, but will not be enough on their own. Christine will go through this a bit more detail in her presentation, but ultimately it's the applicant's responsibility to check if the site is included, and you can do that through the NRW website. An important thing to remember that project activity doesn't need to be directly on the protected site. Of course it can be. So in this example, you'll see on the left-hand side, there's a woodland that says core area. If we think of that as the protected site, project activity could take place directly on it, but also on any of the other identified areas. So it could be land adjacent to the site, it could be connected through a corridor, it could be connected through a stepping stone corridor, it could be connected through a river. What we want to see is a benefit to that core area, that protected site, but we recognise that that doesn't necessarily mean that the activity needs to be taking place right on it. So with this funding, we want to ensure a green recovery for Wales, and therefore we are looking to reverse the decline in nature and address climate change, while at the same time supporting an economic and social recovery through job creation and targeting action towards our most vulnerable communities. We have two key aims. Firstly, that action benefits the management of protected sites, and secondly, that those improvements benefit diverse local communities through access or activities such as events and training. We are particularly interested in activity that benefits underrepresented groups such as people from ethnic minority communities, people with a disability, and people living in areas of deprivation. The programme is open to all. However, you must have the right permissions, licenses and consents to undertake the work. Therefore, we anticipate that the majority of projects will be from groups or individuals who own or manage the sites. During the assessment process, we will be looking at the impact the project will have to the protected site. You will therefore need to have a good understanding of the species, habitats, designations and management objectives. Again, this will be covered in more detail by Christine. This is predominantly a capital programme. While there is still some revenue available to deliver the projects and to support community involvement alongside, the focus in assessment will be on the proposed capital works. You should aim to deliver in English and Welsh. This means that as a minimum, all written documentation should be bilingual. So as I say, this is a capital programme. The capital definition is in the guidance, and I would encourage you to read through it in detail to make sure that you are asking for eligible items. Up to 10% of that capital budget can be used on activity from both staff and consultants, such as project management. This will be classed as a capital cost and can include consultants undertaking desk-based work as long as it is directly related to the capital. We would encourage you to include up to £3,000 for contingency, but this is a capital item and will only be able to be used for capital spend when in delivery. Up to 10% of the total budget can be used on revenue. This is on top of the 10% that we've just looked at within the capital slide. So the revenue costs can include staff time for both new and existing staff, core organisational costs, activity costs, room hire, and so on. Any activity any active community involvement should be embedded where the core focus is on restoration of protected sites. Applications focused solely on the involvement of people will be ineligible. A project that is solely focused on a capital educational resource, such as bird hide, may be eligible, but may not be as strong as one which also focuses on restoration. We can't fund future or ongoing maintenance costs with this programme. And we have also received a question about websites, whether they are eligible, and they are eligible. So normally, initial design and content development of a website would be classed as capital, but if you already have a website and you're looking to update or maintain that website, then it would be classed as revenue. In terms of key dates, on the 12th of April, we will be opening applications between £50,000 to £100,000, and we will make a decision on those by the end of July. On the same date, on the 12th of April, we will also be opening expressions of interest for grants between £100,000 to £500,000. The expressions of interest is mandatory. If you're successful at that stage, we will invite you to submit an application by the 30th of June for a decision in September. You are able to submit more than one application, and each will be judged separately and on its own merits. If you do submit more than one application, we will also assess your capacity to deliver multiple programmes. Of course, at this stage, what we don't know is how competitive it's going to be. So you may well be in a situation where your projects are competing against each other if you submit more than one application. Therefore, you should only submit projects that are priority to your organisation or to yourself. It is also possible to submit one application for a number of sites, as long as there is a shared vision across your project, basically, so you're making it into one project, even if it's on a number of sites. So at this stage, I'm going to hand over to Alice from Welsh Government to see if there's anything she would like to add.
Thanks, Julie. Good morning, Bore da, everybody. I'm Alice Teague, and I'm Head of Biodiversity and Environmental Governance for Welsh Government. And we're really pleased to be working with Heritage Lottery and NRW on the Nature Networks Fund. So I just want to focus in a bit, firstly, on why we've chosen the Protected Sites Network. So, as you'll be aware, they're haven to some of our most valuable habitats and species in Wales. And improving the condition of these sites are vital to our ambition to halt and reverse biodiversity loss across Wales. And essentially, we want to enable them to function as core areas of resilient ecological networks in which habitats can and species can thrive and expand. For any of you that have been involved in the Welsh Government-run SMS Natura 2000 scheme from this financial year, it's a successor programme to that successor fund, looking at similar focus in terms of restoring the condition of protected sites, but it's got a broader focus than just the N2K sites themselves, and a clear focus this time on the connectivity between the different sites. Another area that we're interested in is the sustainable management of natural resources, which was a concept introduced by the Environment Act in Wales. And it's around ensuring that the way that in which we use and impact on our natural resources don't result in their long-term decline. And one of the overall aims of that is to maintain and enhance the resilience of ecosystems. There are a number of principles that apply to SMNR, and three are particularly relevant for this fund. So the first is around improving the resilience of ecosystems to ensure they're capable of adapting to the impacts they face from climate change and future demand. And this includes diversity within and between the ecosystems and the scale and the condition of those ecosystems. Secondly, we're also interested in the benefits and intrinsic value of natural resources and ecosystems. So it's looking at broader than just the environmental benefits, but also the social, economic and health benefits. And finally, taking into account the short, medium and long-term consequences of actions, and particularly how projects, how improvements would be sustained after the project funding ends. So as Julie's mentioned, in terms of your application, you won't be able to bid for ongoing maintenance. So we're interested in how you will maintain any improvements. And then finally, just moving on to the active involvement. So, you know, as you're aware, we have the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act in Wales, which introduces 7 different goals, which provide the shared vision we want to see for Wales. And obviously this fund is going to contribute to a number of the goals, so particularly the Resilient Wales goal, but also a healthier Wales and a more prosperous Wales. But one of the things the Act also does is introduce 5 ways of working. So in keeping with the Act, we also want to support the increased involvement of people engaged with the protected site network. So you have networks of people alongside the protected sites networks and the connectivity between. So the type of activity that we could be looking for as examples would be increasing and diversifying the pool of volunteers, so there's a more sustainable resource base going forward. Support to establish paid training schemes such as Kickstart, or to provide evidence of change on sites through citizen science, such as the pollinators monitoring schemes, for example. And as Julie's mentioned, you know, we're particularly interested in initiatives that would involve a broader range of people, so ethnic minorities, younger people, people from more deprived areas. Okay, I will stop now and hand over to Christine Edwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. I'm Christine Edwards from Natural Resources Wales, and my role is the lead specialist advisor on the Protected Sites programme. And this morning, I want to just signpost you to sources of information about the protected areas we've been talking about. So if I could have the first slide, please. So Sites of Special Scientific Interest, SSSIs, cover 12% of Wales. In addition to SSSIs, we have international designations. Some 60% of SSSIs have an additional designation on top, so special protection areas for birds, special areas of conservation, and 12.6% of Wales, we'll just see the map in a second. There we are, you can see the distribution. We've got many large sites, large upland sites, and smaller sites from bat roosts to rivers. And of course, in the marine environment, a significant percentage of the Welsh coastline is designated in one way or another. So to find out more information about these sites, the NRW website has a search tool where you can find documentation relating to why the sites are designated and information in, say, for SSSIs on site management statements, which helps articulate what sort of management we would want to see in the sites for the habitats and species. For special areas of conservation and special protection areas, there are core management plans. And for marine sites, there's a Regulation 37 marine advice documents. If you want to find out the exact location via GIS, the best place to go is the Welsh Government Geo portal Lle. And finally, NRW maintains a data set about all of these designations called the Actions Database, where we've divided every single site into management units. We've got about 7,000 different management units, where we've tried to capture over the years what the conservation management issues are, what mechanisms might possibly be used to address these issues. It's a very good source of information. Also for SACs and SPAs, we have what are called prioritised improvement plans, which were drawn up from a project in 2015 to try and say, well, what are the most urgent actions that need to be taken? Okay, so the data is available on request, and the email address will come on the final slide. Can you just go back a slide, please? Okay, also on the NRW website, you can access the area statements and this Wales Environmental Information Portal, which holds a lot of data about the habitat networks. Okay, final slide. So you can apply for the fund without having a consent or a license in place, but you must have any necessary consents or license if you're successful in place before you actually started any projects. So I would encourage you to talk to the NRW lead officer for any sites that you're making proposals for if they're not already in an agreed management plan. If you don't know who the lead officer is, email this email address, which is also on the website, the HLF website, and we will signpost you to the correct person. And also if you require any data. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Bore da pawb. Good morning, everybody. Jason Jones ydw i. I'm Jason Jones from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. Diolch, Christine. Thank you, Christine. And I'm going to take you through some of the practical things about how to apply for a grant. So first thing is to say that we're splitting this fund into two funding application processes. So the first one is if you are applying for a grant of £50,000 to £100,000. There's information available now on our website, on the National Lottery Heritage Fund website, and you'll have guidance both on the Nature Networks Fund, and you'll also have some specific guidance on how to apply for a National Lottery Heritage Fund application. We are using our usual National Lottery Heritage Fund application for this, so there may be some questions on there that won't be relevant, all the more reason why to read the guidance. But if you spot something where it says that the Nature Networks Fund guidance says one thing and the National Lottery Heritage Fund guidance says something else, the Nature Networks Fund guidance will always take precedence in that case. What you can't do on our system is you can't upload the application and then work on it and save as you go. So you'll have to do it all in one go. So what we suggest is you prepare your answers in advance, offline, and then upload the information onto the application form in one go. You have a 6,000 word limit, and you need to submit your applications for this route by Monday the 24th of May on noon at that time. And then we'll send you a confirmation email to say that we've received your application. We also ask that you submit any supporting documents, many of which will be mandatory for your application, by the 26th of May. And on the next slide, we'll talk about that. So the supporting documents that we're talking about are things like, if you're an organisation, we need a copy of your governing document. And likewise, we need a copy of your audited accounts. And for organisations, that is a mandatory requirement. For all projects, we need a project plan. We have a template for that, and that's for you to tell us what you're planning to do, who's doing it, when you're doing it, that sort of thing. We'd need to have partnership agreements if you're working in partnership with any other organisation. If a survey is required for your site, we need a copy of your survey. If you're planning to take on any new staff, we need copies of the job descriptions. And if you are commissioning any new work by a contractor or consultant, we need a brief for that work as well. It's always good if you send us some images. So if you're trying to explain a site on your application, you have an opportunity to send us a photo of how it currently looks, and also perhaps some maps or designs about how you hope it would look when it's finished, just to give us some idea of what you're talking about. And you can provide letters of support. We suggest this from anybody who may be affected by the project, anybody who may be involved in the project. It could be the partners that you're working with, and you have the opportunity to send us up to 6 of those. And if you are claiming full cost recovery, which is eligible under this funding scheme, we need a calculation of that in your application, and any ownership documents that may be applicable. So, for example, if you have a lease. We've had a question on the Padlet, so thank you very much for anybody that's submitted questions there. And there was something specifically around, would an email from a landowner be acceptable? I would say on that, it would be, provide us with as much information as you can. An email perhaps would be acceptable, but if you can get a copy of an agreement or something that you propose to sign down the line, that would be helpful, but things don't necessarily need to be signed at this stage. So the second route to apply then is if you're applying for a grant of £100,000 to £500,000. Julie said earlier on, we don't know how competitive it's going to be yet, although we do expect it to be competitive. So we've brought in a 2-stage process for the larger grants. For this then, you need to complete and submit a short expression of interest form by the 30th of April, so a bit earlier. We'll then have a look at that and see what your ideas are, what your plans are, and then we'll come back to you within 10 working days, hopefully, in most cases, and we'll tell you if you've been successful to go on to the next stage or if you're not successful. So if you're successful, you'll have that invitation to apply, and then you'd need to go back to what I talked about earlier and complete the full application by the 30th of June. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the assessment process. Other than acknowledging your application, we won't contact you after receiving the application. So we'll base the information solely on the information you provide to us in the form. So we are aware a lot of organisations might have had grants before. We may know an organisation involved, but we won't take anything into account other than the information you provide on the application. So do be clear about where you are, who you are, and what you're doing, and don't presume we know anything about you already. The advisory panel for the applications will be made up of the 3 organisations on the webinar today. So that's Welsh Government, Natural Resources Wales, and the National Lottery Heritage Fund, although the final decisions will lie with the trustees of the National Heritage Memorial Fund. Next slide, please. So a little bit of information on subsidy control, and it's very much on the applicant's responsibility here to check everything out. So it's your responsibility to check whether state aid or subsidy control clearance is required. It's your responsibility to check if your application has been checked in relation to subsidy control. And if you're unsure, we do suggest that you seek independent legal advice. Just a reminder that, of course, European Commission state aid rules no longer apply since December 2020, so all decisions would now be subject to the new UK subsidy control regime. Next slide. Working on private land, that is eligible on this project, what you must be clear of, though, is that any public benefit must outweigh any potential private gain. And of course, you can't breach any subsidy control rules. We do encourage all applicants to provide public access to the site. We know that's sometimes difficult on habitat conservation reasons, but we do suggest that you put some public access in, perhaps around the site, and you can also apply for some infrastructure to do that. So if you want to put a new path in, or if you want to put, say, a bird hide in or something, that would be covered under this. Works can take place on land owned by government departments or any arm's length bodies, provided they don't financially benefit from the investment. And we need to be clear that any work should not be covered by any existing statutory responsibility. Next slide, please. So a few top tips on applying. First is, as I've already said, do read the guidance which is on our website now. Don't presume we know who you are or what you're talking about, so give us as much detail as you can, although we do suggest that good quality detail, clear information is more important than lots and lots of words just to fill up the 6,000 word limit. We do ask for you to provide some detail in your budget. So don't just tell us you're claiming £100,000 for machinery. We need to know what equipment it was, how much each thing was, and there's room in the application form for you to break that down for us. We suggest that you prepare your mandatory supporting documents before you submit, because we'd appreciate it if you could send those in within 2 days of your application. That means that we'll be able to track your documents better, particularly if we have a lot of applications to the process. And we need you to provide evidence of how you're accounting for COVID restrictions in this, because it's going to be around a little longer, unfortunately, but we do want the projects to go ahead and the money to be spent within the next couple of years. So do take into account how you'll adapt to any COVID restrictions. Next slide. And if you are there today and thinking, oh, this fund isn't for me, we do have a couple of other funds that you can apply for. One is our Local Places for Nature scheme, which is a capital grant scheme to acquire, restore and enhance nature. There are grants of £10,250,000 available there. That now also includes the opportunity to purchase land. That's given in partnership with Welsh Government. Also, our Community Woodland Scheme is a capital grant scheme to restore, create, connect and manage community woodlands. Again, grants of £10,250,000 available, and that's also money provided by Welsh Government and the National Lottery Heritage Fund. And finally, we have the regular National Lottery Grants for Heritage funding programme, which is now reopened. There are grants of £3,000 to £5 million available, but we do have some specific themes for 2021 to 22. So we'd want projects that are prioritising skills and jobs, inclusion, organisation resilience, better places, economy and well-being. Next slide, please. And that is my final slide. So just to say, if you do require any further information after today and you don't want to ask a question after this, you can contact us at natur@heritagelottery.org.uk, and that spelling is correct, it is the Welsh word. Also, Christine has brought to life the support available by Natural Resources Wales, so do consider that. There's some really useful area statements on each area in Wales, and there's also the email address that Christine mentioned as well. Do use that for advice. But that's it from me. But what we'll now do is we'll go to the question and answer session that is on the agenda.
Okay, so I think what we've done is we've tried to embed some of the questions that were asked before the webinar into our presentation, but it's really easy on these things to miss answers. So if you've missed it, don't worry, feel free to ask again. So either ask in the chat and we'll pick them up that way, or if you want to put your hand up and ask face to face, that is also fine with us too. Okay, we've got a question from Judy. Elise, are you able to unmute? I'm not sure if you can unmute yourself, Judy.
Yeah, Judy, you should be able to unmute now and come on microphone and on camera if you wish.
Hi, Judy.
Just wanted to clarify, quite early on, I'm sorry, I was trying to keep up writing some notes. I couldn't do print screens. About the involvement of communities in the work, in the projects. Will and you said there were dual aims, the work on the land and the communities. So would applications which involve communities be preferred in any way?
Yeah, we would, I guess predominantly this is a restoration programme. So, you know, if you can do a project without community involvement, but yeah, we would like to see community involvement in there if possible.
So you would give preferential treatment to an application?
Yeah, if it becomes competitive in that, you know, we haven't got enough money to go around and you've got two projects which maybe are as strong in terms of the habitat restoration and one has community involvement and the other one doesn't, then that would be the one that got the money.
So clinching factor if it's competitive. Thank you.
So Maria has asked a question on the chat about any restrictions on working with other projects funded through local places for nature. So no restrictions. Obviously, all we will be looking for is that there's no double funding. So we assess those as well and monitor them. So we will just be working internally to make sure that we're clear on where those differences lie. And it might be that within the application you make our lives easier by really explaining that. But there's no issues with a project being funded by both of them, as long as we can see what the clear differences are. Okay, so Gabriella's asked a question about work across multiple sites. So yeah, that is fine. We're happy to have kind of multiple sites across one project. In terms of whether estimates are allowed at application stage, yeah, we're happy to have estimates at that stage. Obviously, what we will want to have is an idea that it's a reasonable estimate. So if it's come from some sort of evidence gathering, then that just gives us some cost certainty, because what we don't want to do is award a grant for you to then go out and get estimates and for the cost to increase or double, because once that money is given out, we can't give any more to you. So it's as far as you can go to make sure that they are accurate costs. So Maria's asked a question with regard to invasives. So could you clear invasives upstream to stop them getting to a triple SI? Do you want to answer that one, Alice?
Yes, so my view would be yes, because it's still improving the protected site. It's still improving the triple SI because it's action on adjoining or nearby land that's going to protect the sites. I don't know if Christine has anything specific she'd want to say about that, but my view is that's absolutely fine.
Yes, I would support that as well. You can make that connection with the site itself and what the risk would be to the designated features. The work doesn't need to be actually within the site boundaries, but if it's supporting, a potential risk.
So I was just saying that we'll wrap up the session now, but what we will do is just hang around after I've wrapped up, and then you obviously leave as you wish. But if you do want to ask a question informally, then we'll hang around for 5-10 minutes to answer those questions as well. So really just diolch I gyd am ddod today. So thank you for all the presenters and the people who've helped, but also thank you for attending and challenging us with your questions. It's a new programme, so almost the more questions we have, the better, so that we can work out what people need to know. We're really happy to be working with Welsh Government and with NRW on this programme, and we look forward to seeing your applications and really funding some really exciting projects across Wales. In the meantime, get in touch if you've got any more questions, and we will be asking you to submit an evaluation report to us. Working on webinars is still quite new to us. This fund is very new to us, so we do want to learn from you. So please do be honest, and we can improve for future webinars and future programmes. That's it from me. Thank you very much.